Hi guys, I'm Shmee, hello and welcome back to the channel where I am very much on theme at the moment. Of course, here in Italy, beautiful weather, having just collected the newest Shmee-mobile, my Ferrari SF90 Stradale. Now, straight off the back from picking that car up in the hometown of Ferrari in Maranello, we're now in Modena at the Enzo Ferrari Museum, the Museo Enzo Ferrari, where we're going to be having a quick look inside at some lovely and beautiful Ferraris before we get straight on the road to take this car for its first 1,000 kilometers, 600 miles, a stretch taking us all the way up through the north of Italy, through Austria, into the south of Germany for a checkpoint, and onwards towards Frankfurt, all leading towards Easter weekend at the Nürburgring. So straight after picking up this wonderful thing, very bright in blue electrico in the sunshine, we're going to have a quick kind of learn as we go, because obviously I've picked it up on the road. We've got all of the luggage in the GTC4Lusso, and we're heading for a 1,000 kilometer drive. But let's first head inside and take a look. Before we do go inside, and I think this is the first time I've ever even been to Modena, but this building behind was actually Enzo Ferrari's father's workshop, which is now obviously home to a bit of a museum here in the city. But we're learning as we go, as I said, with this car. And one of the things about it, obviously given the weather is quite so nice, and I should now put my lovely new bright red jacket away, is that there's not a whole lot of luggage space. Now, we did know that prior to departure, but if you open up the front, inside here, you're going to get one bag and some seat packaging, obviously for protection if it needs to be transported at any point. And you're going to have a bit of a squeeze, even to pop in a jacket. That's why we have the Lusso. So I want to see if I can come up with a solution for transport down the line with this car and what exactly we can do with it. But at this point in time, we've got about 140 kilometers on the clock, and we've got about 900 kilometers ahead of us. So it'll be 1,000 miles in. The Lusso is completely loaded up with everything. It feels ridiculous to be driving a Ferrari and have a Ferrari as the support car, but normally when I've purchased a car, I've collected it in the UK, and before going off on an adventure, I'd have had time to work out what cables I need, what mounts, what passes, what different luggage fits best in the car. But having done it the other way around this time, it's completely winging it, and it's certainly interesting. So there's a lot to go through in terms of that. For the moment though, let's head straight inside, because I want to show you quickly here at the Museo Enzo Ferrari, where there are some lovely, lovely things to come and take a look at. Have a look at this immense hall here at the Museo Enzo Ferrari with the Ferrari Forever exhibit. We have a lot of very special models to take a look at inside this amazing presentation. Alongside me, the 250 GT Competizione, tucked in back there, a 250 Europa. We've got a lot of the 1960s models just here. 250 GT Cabriolet, imagine cruising one of those. 250 short wheelbase, the SWB Competizione, very, very valuable as we come round. Have a look at that, of course, leading on to the 250 GTOs of that era. We've got a 250 2+2, we've got a 250 GT Lusso. These are some magnificent cars and a big part of Enzo Ferrari's history and legacy. The 275 GTS, again, a lovely car. Just imagine cruising in one of those. Some more of the history. We can see some of the frames and different processes, some Ferrari Classic A exhibits as well. As we come towards this side, we've got the 275 GTB, looking lovely in the Giallo. We've got the 365 GTB Daytona, obviously a generation slightly further forwards with that wedge shape. If we come through this way, tucked in around here, this is the 375 MM. Open, following on from one we'll check out in just a second. We've got the 208 GTB Turbo, we've got the 308 GTB as well. And just down this way, this is the 750 Monza, of course the historical link on which the first of the Icona series, the SP1s and SP2s, were based, that open driving experience. They also have the rooms with different engine generations. There's also an archive, and I've spent a lot of time taking a look at this display of many of the different Ferrari models, all the way back from the new Daytona, the SP3, 296 GTB Pista di Fiorano, 812 Competizione Aperta, 812 Competizione, and some of the one-offs and all of the F1 cars. Believe me, for somebody like me, that is absolutely awesome to take a look at, seeing all of the different cars going back in time. We've got a very nice blue 246 Dino just here, obviously the small Ferrari, you could say. If we come through this way, we have the 250P If we come and take a look at this, of course, race car through and through. Have a look inside. Right-hand drive with the gear shifter tucked in down to the right, down there as well, on the side of the door. Imagine racing flat out in one of those. What a place to visit. And even here, as you can see, they project different movies and videos and make the whole place dark as well for different videos to be shown up on that end screen inside this building, which actually has a bright yellow roof out to the side as well. And that is not all. Now this is an amazing room. We have the turbo V8 engines, so California 488. This is the F40 engine and gearbox as it happens. We have more of the naturally aspirated V8s from the likes of the 430 back to the 355, and then we have some of the V12s all the way through to this, the 6.5 litre naturally aspirated V12 found in the 812 Superfast. Always lovely to take a look at. Something Ferrari do so well, the iconic red engine parts. The exhibition continues inside Enzo's father's workshop, the original location. We have a 250 Inter, followed by, of course, the F40, I think one of the most favoured of Ferraris of all time. And then a 2003 Formula One car. Obviously, Formula One has been a huge part of Ferrari's success, and to have that here as well is even more part of it, with my cars lurking just outside, where we'll head in a second. Well, this is quite nice as well. There's a lot more to see beyond the cars, including some items from the family that have been presented here. Enzo's spectacles from the 1950s, some of the furniture that was in his office, including a board meeting table that no doubt had a lot of fiery discussions held around it, plus some of the trophies on display in the cabinets, the model cars and the likes. All very, very nice to be able to see. Little did I know when I was inside that the SF90 was sitting right here, and I tell you what, in the sunshine, this thing looks amazing. Now, one thing obviously I already talked about was that prior to me officially collecting the car, we could say, it went to Topaz Detailing to get full paint protection film, and the beautiful thing about the way that Topaz do this is that you can't see it. You have absolutely no idea that anything's here. Even the headlights have protective film on them. The whole body, everything, the blue, the black, the lights, the carbon fibre, you name it, all fully protected, because I knew we would immediately embark on a very big voyage with the car. And I think I got a little muddled with miles and kilometres earlier. 600 miles, 1,000 kilometres ahead of us with this. Now, talking PPF, paint protection film, a few people got a little bit unhappy that I took this to wash it myself with a brush, and I know that's not the best, but one of the things with this Lusso is we agreed prior to collection that it was going to get the PPF refreshed, because it had already done an adventure and it already had a lot of bug splats, and it's got a lot more now. So we know we're going to be taking it back to Topaz, and we know we're going to be refreshing it and kind of showing how you can even restore PPF and make it look a little bit better as well. So I wasn't particularly worried, and you can kind of understand why I would have preferred to have this nice and clean alongside that just for the collection day, the two cars together, because you can't turn up to Ferrari with a dirty Ferrari, and it was the next morning. Anyway, this is completely full of luggage, but still has plenty of space left. It's a really practical car. The two together are just amazing, and I guess we're enjoying the sunshine here in the place where you could say it all began. This was it. Enzo Ferrari was here. This is the workshop, I guess, as he as a child started his automotive passion before heading over to Maranello and everything that we now know, obviously beginning. So before too long, we'll hop in the car and learn it as we go, with a very, very, very long drive ahead of us. We've just had a pizzeria lunch stop, but we noticed down here in the footwell, we have a piece of protective film still on, which is always quite satisfying, except it's hard to reach behind the throttle pedal. Obviously, one thing just to stop you scratching it. There's actually another one here, but I'm not going to try and do that right now, because this is not the largest cabin in the world, and we're going to be spending enough hours in here today. It'll be interesting to learn the hybrid system a little bit more. And also, Maserati is just down the road, so we might just drive by and see the HQ and all of that. We should set off in a moment. Lusso's ready, SF90's ready. It's time for the long road. No sooner have we left the gates than right here is Maserati with the Trident up on the top of the tower there, parking garage, and I think the factory buildings are basically behind. Now, given we've got a fairly high state of charge in here at the moment, we are running in eDrive. I've got it set to hybrid, but obviously it uses the battery if it can. And in fact, just to show you quickly, down on the Odo, we've got 237 kilometers already. Is that about 140 miles? But that is the Maserati offices. And then I think if you get a quick view through the buildings here, the factories are all behind. So this is quite literally heartland of Maserati. I've never been here. I've never been to Maserati's HQ, right alongside the Enzo Ferrari Museo. Maybe we can see even a little bit more down this way. Down to the left, yeah. There it all is. Right, not a bad way to start today's journey, and we've driven completely in the wrong direction, so we need to spin around, get on the motorway, because we've got a fair few hundred kilometres ahead of us. The big frustration at the moment is that here in Italy, the weather is beautiful. It is blue skies, it's sunny, it's really warm. In fact, the car says it's 23 degrees Celsius. I wouldn't even be surprised if it's even a touch warmer than that. But where we're heading in the south of Germany is currently very cold, very wet, very miserable, and part of me wants to change the plan and actually just stay here in Italy with the two Italian cars right now and have a good time with them. But I think in reality we need to get a move on, which means joining the autostrada here, the Italian motorways, and then making the most of having my toll gadget telepass, which is going to be over to the far right side. This does make it super smooth, and you can actually use these even in car parks and things in some places. Just kind of hold it out and through you go. Nice and easy. Wait for the second beep. And then we're going, I think, right lane to Brennero, Verona, Mantova. That sounds about right. Let's go with that and hope. But we're always in e-drive. This is the thing you notice with the SF90. Spending a bit of time with it. It spends so much time in e-drive. You wouldn't kind of believe how much. Obviously when you get on the throttle the engine fires in, but then you get all sorts of swooshes and whooshes and fun noises out of it. But basically it's on e-drive as much as it can be. And in hybrid, I suppose in hybrid mode, the first thing I'll comment is that I would probably prefer it to retain a little bit more charge than it does. It kind of depletes everything straight away until it's down to 0 and then tops up a little bit and then uses it. But I'm going to learn all of that process as we go. Just gone through 250 kilometers so far. So our next turning, according to my nav, is in 310 kilometers, the border to Austria, before which we need to buy an Austrian vignette, standard road trip things, and not get in any trouble for that. And actually I'd quite like to fill up both cars as well, so we can do a long slog and get some kind of impression of what the fuel side of this thing is like, because technically for the kind of car it should be fairly efficient. Jump ahead a bit, and we are now up in the mountains as we make our way pretty close to Austria. We're about 67 kilometers now from the Austrian border, having a very gentle cruise, and it's going to be quite interesting because we filled both cars up at exactly the same time to see how they've done on fuel over the last couple of hours. I'm having a bit of confusion with the electrics in this car and getting my Bluetooth working, and I think it's to do with the conflict of having the two cars driving together and effectively my phone determining which one it's connecting to and getting it all wrong. We are going to stop at about 2 kilometers to purchase the Austrian vignette, because you get a pretty unfriendly fine if they spot you driving through without one, so we're going to get that done 100%. There are lots of trucks. Obviously the speed differential is something you have to watch out for, but we're still cruising along. It pops into e-drive every now and then, but as we noticed earlier, because it depletes so heavily at the start, that's basically the kind of end of it, and then it runs on the petrol engine for most of the rest. But it's a really comfy car. It's a really comfortable supercar. That's what this car does differently to pretty much all of the others that I have. Just with these tunnels, it's a lovely place to cruise along, up the highways, still running it in, but by the end of this massively long drive, this car will be running and ready to go, ready to have some fun on the Autobahn. The only worry is what the weather is going to do in front of us, although miraculously it's still at 21 degrees. I was quite worried it was going to be much worse than this by now, so we're doing all right. This isn't a huge surprise. We're approaching the border. You can see the signs off to the right up ahead, and it's raining. That was always inevitable. And the fun thing is, because obviously it's charged the car up a little bit, we're now sitting in a traffic jam in e-drive. Like, I know this is obvious from, let's say, non-supercar hybrids, from normal hybrids, how the technology works. But with the performance benefits and the experience and kind of fun of learning it, it actually adds a new dimension to the car, which I really quite like. Anyway, around here somewhere we shall be entering Austria. Ah yes, roadworks with the tunnel. I think the official entry to Austria is the other side of this, I guess, roadworks section. Let's just hope the weather doesn't get significantly worse, because it's down to 7 degrees Celsius and it's raining. Oh well, the car was going to see some rain at some point, given it's eventually going to end up in the UK. This was inevitable, so no surprises there. This is perfect weather for driving a brand new 1,000 horsepower supercar. Oh my goodness. We're crossing over the Fern Pass in Austria, which often from my experience basically means sitting in a line of vans and trucks and things. But we've now got 639 kilometers on the car. You can see the battery charge is depleted completely down to 0, so it's pretty much all the time, unless you go downhill and then it coasts basically on electric. 639 kilometers, what's that, about 400 miles on the car already? First day driving it since picking it up. Not bad going, if you ask me. We've got an hour and a half more of this though, which, if it stays like this, is pretty miserable and grim, unfortunately. There's a ski hill up there. No, it looks a bit steep. Those aren't ski hills. Oh well. Can't change it. Just gotta rock and roll with it. We've just had another fill up about 330 kilometers later, and it's been quite interesting. So in that distance, this car used 33.5 litres. The Lusso used 47.5. So it turns out that having a hybrid is quite economical. I'm trying to work out where to go now. Up here, as we pull away electrically, nice and silent. For the moment, the weather has not improved, but we've only got half an hour to go. We will cross the border into Germany shortly, and I'm really quite interested to have seen that, because we've been driving super gently for quite a long time now, to be honest. And we've got the numbers. Scores are on the doors, and we're off onwards towards Germany. And there is the entry to Germany, D. So we're now in our third country of the voyage. I suppose you could argue that this car has been also to France and to England. So now it's fifth country, not going too badly, if I can say so myself. And I doubt the weather is going to have changed out the other side either. Well, we've made it. We're up to 750 kilometers on this car now, which means we're going to have this run in on the Autobahn very shortly. For now though, we have squeezed the two cars into some fairly small parking spaces. Obviously right-hand drive, they work best that way around. We've got some luggage to take inside to go and have a rest before this journey continues tomorrow, and thankfully I have a nice warm jacket, perfect for the purpose given it is much colder here. Anyway, we'll see you in a few seconds tomorrow morning. Good morning. The journey continues. Thankfully, we actually have a bit of sunshine trying to poke through the rain clouds, and we've got about 3 hours of onward journey ahead of us towards Frankfurt to get this car up to about it will be 1,150 kilometers on the clock by the time we get there. So very much the first 1,000 kilometers down. And I tell you what, being back in it, it feels so cool. The way even now it's chopping in and out of e-drive and hybrid. There's so much to learn about this. But yes, the Autobahn beckons, and maybe when we hit 1,000 kilometers, there will be an opportunity to let it unleash. That was the blind spot monitoring, but I figured we'd better let the bus go past rather than trying to squeeze out. Anyway, de-restricted Autobahn, but very, very, very busy Autobahn. And as I said, we need to do a little bit more running in. But there was a fun time years ago, actually, a little bit of a story here, with my 675 LT Spider. The moment that car hit 1,000 kilometers, I was actually on de-restricted Autobahn. So up until then, I'd been driving it super gently. 1,000 kilometers on the dashboard, which is the running in speed for that as well. And by 1,001 kilometers, we were doing 300 kilometers per hour, which, I don't know, there's something I've remembered ever since. So let's see what happens with this a little bit later on. For now, it is a bit of a cruise. As I said, we'll take it easy. We're not going to be gassing it to too high speeds until we've just done a little bit more on the car, just to get everything right as we make our way north up through Germany. We just had a quick lunch stop, and we've come out of lunch to the service car park, where look what we have here. I suspect that's probably a facelift G63, which is quite interesting. The facelift is coming soon. No further words about that right now. And then what's next to it? Is that an EQC? Not entirely sure, looks tiny compared to the G-Wagon. Anyway, nice little surprise before we get back onto the Autobahn. This is very rapidly getting worse. The weather is horrific. Now, we currently have 899 kilometers on the Odo, which means we are 90% of the way to officially being run in, and no doubt in a moment that's going to tick over to 900 as we have to get on the brakes because there is a truck that has pulled out right in front of. There we go, 900 kilometers. I suspect when we get even to 1,000 kilometers, if it continues being like this, we're not going to be having much fun. This is de-restricted Autobahn, but this is super, super careful. I just, yeah. I'm a little bit intimidated by 1,000 horsepower, I'm not going to lie. A little bit kind of like, I don't really know how it behaves with the electric motors and the kind of four-wheel drive, so I don't want to just mash my foot on the throttle even when it opens up like this, because I'm not going to take any chances with this one. Just sailing on, quite literally sailing through the massive amounts of water that we have here. Yeah, this is certainly what we can call quite interesting. Oh, yeah, I got tram lined, and somebody else is happy going faster than I am. Not in this. No, thank you. Fast forward another 100 kilometers, and we now have 999 kilometers on the odometer. So that is about to hit 1,000, which will mean officially we're going to be run in at that stage. Now, at the moment, I don't see, there we go, we're officially running, except, yeah, one, we're in a speed limit section, coming down to 100 kilometers an hour for some roadworks. Two, it is pouring with rain. And three, yeah, this is not really about to happen. In fact, I'm even running it in wet mode, which is logical when it's like this. I have had the hybrid system in performance, which is independent to traction control and everything like that. So if you have that in performance or qualifying, it doesn't change the amount of traction and that kind of thing, like in other cars. So that being in performance has helped with charging up the battery, because I'm interested in how this works with topping that up. So up to 15 kilometers of battery range at the moment. 25 kilometers is the maximum, so about 16 miles, which isn't loads, but it's enough for a short hop in town and enough for just getting away from where you live quietly and silently, obviously that kind of thing. And driving in town, you notice that the engine kicks off when you get to a red light. It drives you away from the traffic light, for example, on electric, and then the engine fires in when you're going 20 kilometers an hour. So I presume that's all the way it's calibrated and calculated. Anyway, I don't suspect it's going to get any better today. I think we're going to be sitting in weather like this for the entirety of the rest of this journey, unfortunately. But I would love the weather to prove me wrong. I'm kind of trying to challenge the weather here, see what happens. As we make our way, we'll have another stop at some point for a fuel up, but otherwise, just keep on rolling. This was definitely not how I intended today to go. Yes, it has started to have some snow flurries. Now, it's not settling and it's still above zero, but this is not a very comfortable driving moment, hence why we're going 100 kilometers an hour on a de-restricted Autobahn. We're just gonna cruise this one out and hope that it all goes to plan. Not ideal. We've had a bit of a pause because the drive has been intense, but we are now arriving in Frankfurt. And of course, in recent years, I have spent an awful lot of time in Frankfurt, no longer with a base here, as you might have noticed from the last, I suppose, nearly 2 years now, but still very familiar to be arriving on this stretch of Autobahn, having driven here many, many, many times over the years. Just still with this much rainwater, I don't know how to kind of try and enjoy this drive. This is one of those, on paper, driving 1,000 kilometers in an SF90 seems epic. This has been really intense. The concentration and just being aware of surroundings to this level, and blind spots and just general mayhem. I'm trying to move out, but everyone's tailgating each other so closely. Look at all of these cars coming past us. Why in this weather do you want to be following somebody like that? That makes no sense. Oh well, people will do what they will do. We're just a very long way from the beautiful sunshine that we had when we set off from the Museo Enzo Ferrari. in Modena. That feels like an age ago, but it was just, well, just over 24 hours from now ago. Crazy. Well, the last 14 kilometers into the city centre, hopefully we will find a clear and dry place to park these cars up. We are parked up again then in yet another hotel garage. I don't think to this point I ever showed the key for the car. This is the reserve key, the second key, by the way, but it says SF90 Stradale on it, which is very, very nice. The car loves to beep away at you. When you unlock it, you get the double beep. When you lock it, you get a single beep, and there's a lot going on. And one of the confusing things that I've established about it so far is that you don't really know when you've turned it on, because it turns on obviously in eDrive first up, which is going to learn or take a little bit of learning and adjusting to. But we now have a total on this car of 1,153 kilometers. So we have driven it on that about, well, a little over 900 kilometers in that slog. Obviously over 1,000 kilometers since picking it up. Haven't exactly owned it for very long, and it's possibly done more miles than many SF90s will do in an entire year, or perhaps even in an entire ownership, which is kind of crazy, but that's what it's for. My first new Ferrari, a car that I've really wanted to do a lot of driving with. I know the Assetto Fiorano question comes up a lot. I chose not to go for Assetto Fiorano because I want this to be a car that I use on the road. It is a road supercar. I've got a ton of track-focused supercars in the garage. This, while it might have 1,000 horsepower, is a smart, comfortable, lovely car. The suspension is so supple, it rides so nicely, especially on bumpy Italian roads, and apparently it can handle some pretty inclement weather as well. It's been a shame that we haven't been able to completely open up the taps so far, but alas, we cannot control the weather, and hopefully some good days are going to be ahead with it as well. For now, the thing that I suppose has impressed me, but I should have expected it, is that for a supercar, it is super economical. We're talking in the region of 28 mpg if you go UK style on the long slogs, which is like equivalent almost to my Focus RS, to put this in perspective. Like, that's completely wrong. 1,000 horsepower supercar, 350 horsepower hot hatch, about the same economy when you're driving down the Autobahn. That is what it is. GTC4Lusso has now done probably 2,500 miles, 4,000 kilometers on this trip. Wonderful support car. I've enjoyed seeing it in the mirrors an awful lot for the slogs that we've just had, and obviously a lot more still to come with it. Just, we need some weather to be on side, but as I've said, we've got quite a few more adventures to come on this trip. We will be at the Easter weekend at the Nürburgring, and we will have quite a few other things to drive and share over the coming period as well. For today and yesterday though, having set off from the Museo Enzo Ferrari, and a big thanks to the team there for the hospitality and the visit, all the way up to Germany with the newest Shmee, it is mega. So thank you again, as always, guys, for your support. Thank you very much. Without you, this would not be possible. It is hugely appreciated. That's it for this time. The first drive, the first 1,000 kilometers, the SF90 is now run in. I'll see you again very soon. Cheers.